We live, dude. All right, cool. Come on, I clicked the video, dude.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, the breaking news. Moments ago, a deadly plane crash in the Bahamas. All 10 people on board killed. What we're learning at this hour. Also tonight, the terrifying scare at 15,000 feet. A passenger partially sucked out of the shattered window of a plane. His wife hanging on to him for dear life. Travelers on the packed jet looking on in horror. The flash flooding emergency in the heartland triggering urgent search and rescues at this hour. A reported building collapse sending at least 10 people into the water. More than 21 million people at risk from the floods. Plus thousands of flights impacted by the storms. And this chilling sight, a jet veering off the taxiway after landing in the rain. Tonight, new questions emerging in the deadly ICE shooting in Houston. Homeland Security officials saying the man killed was not the intended target of their investigation.
No shit.
Major housing bill becoming law at the stroke of midnight, despite President Trump's refusal to sign it. Details on the historic bipartisan measure that aims to make homes more affordable. President Trump greenlighting a new round of talks with Iran while saying the ceasefire is over. The administration's next move after escalating attacks on Iranian military targets. A new trove of UFO files released by the Pentagon. A look at the latest mysterious videos.
Why?
The emotional words tonight from the parents of Nolan Wells. The new interview as they search for answers in their son's final hours. And America Strong tonight, remembering a pioneer of aviation, Wally Funk, leaving a lasting legacy in the worlds of flight and space travel, the challenges she overcame, and a decades-long career that soared to impressive heights.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us on this Friday. I'm Rachel Scott in for David, and we do begin with that breaking news as we come on the air. The back-to-back flight emergencies. A plane crashing in the Bahamas. We're hearing 10 people are dead tonight.
Skip.
We turn now to the catastrophic flooding emergency.
Oh my God. Okay, Skip.
2% of all its flights canceled. Rachel?
Okay, Morgan, thank you. So let's
get
right to
God, no way.
Jeff Smith. Jeff, you're tracking that heavy rain. Turn now to the deadly ICE shooting in Houston, Texas. The Department of Homeland Security admitting that a man fatally shot by an ICE officer was not the intended target of their investigation.
No
shit. The community is in shock tonight and demanding an independent investigation. Here's John Quinones.
Tonight, federal authorities revealing that Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, the husband and father killed by ICE agents while on his way to work, was not their intended target. A DHS official saying Araujo was stopped after officers observed a white van with an individual who resembled the target.
The fuck does that mean?
Araujo's family sharing this video
showing
him getting into his white van early Tuesday morning.
Also, you know, we're going to look at the details here, right? If you look at this video from the white van, this paneling, perfect. The whole van was in mint condition, man. Like, there was nothing wrong with the van. There were no marks. There were no scuff marks. The paneling was there. Everything looked fine with the van. It looked pristine. Like, you know, that was his pride and joy of him, going and being a hardworking person.
Showing him getting into his white van early Tuesday morning. ICE officials claim Araujo rammed a federal vehicle during an attempted arrest and that he was...
And here you can see that paneling is gone, and it looks like there's tire marks because these are curved. These are curved marks. This is what it looks like when an SUV rubs up against your car. So they rammed him. It's very obvious in this screenshot here.
Shot after
while he's fucking bleeding out, dying, and this dumbass that probably shot him is calling for backup and not calling for an ambulance.
Refused to follow commands, but witnesses inside Araujo's vehicle casting doubt.
All three of my clients reiterated that at no point was there ever an agent standing in front of the vehicle, nor was an agent ever placed in the line of danger.
It's a nightmare.
Araujo, the father of 3 sons, all U.S. citizens. The young men telling me their father, a Mexican national, had been in the country for almost 35 years and was close to obtaining legal status.
We miss him, and that I know that in his final moments, as fearful as he was for his own life, I know he was thinking about us.
They tell us, we should be hardworking people. That they just come here and take all the jobs. This guy made his own business. He had his own van. He was his own person. He was out there hiring people to go work with him for the day. Like, how much of a hard worker do you want him to be?
Rachel, Homeland Security officials say the agents involved were in unmarked vehicles and were not wearing body cameras. Tonight, the Harris County District Attorney's Office says that anyone with video of this incident come forward. Rachel?
Okay, John, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you. We turn now to a major housing bill that's on track to become law at midnight without President Trump's signature.
They gave that maybe a minute and a half? Okay, maybe 2 minutes. All right. No. It was about a minute and a half. Yeah.
Sure. The sweeping legislation focused on lowering.
But meanwhile, they fucking covered some random ass plane crash, weather, and more weather for the first 10 minutes.
And cost was supported by both Democrats and Republicans. Tonight, why the president says he is protesting the bill. Here's ABC's
ABC News.
Tonight, that historic bill Congress passed with overwhelming bipartisan support aimed at lowering housing costs for Americans is set to become law at midnight, but without the president's signature. Trump says he's refusing to sign it in protest over the fact that the United States Senate is not capable of passing the Save America Act, his sweeping voter ID law that would greatly restrict mail-in voting. It comes just hours after the president forced out the last 3 members of the Election Assistance Commission, a bipartisan group put in place decades ago as a guardrail for election security. The president has tried to sow doubt about
he likes to build, but won't sign off on it. Exactly.
The election system and reshape how votes are counted ahead of the high-stakes midterms. This latest move shocking election officials across the country.
It's almost like all of the Project 2025 shit just continues to happen.
It's irresponsible.
If only there was a manual or a book that somebody wrote on this that we could see and, we could read it and we could see these things coming. But I guess, who knows if that exists.
Dangerous, and it causes chaos because we're not going to have the guidance, the bipartisan, level-headed, steadfast commission that we had that we could depend on.
Now, the White House is defending the president's decision, pointing to the Supreme Court's recent ruling that the president has the authority to fire the leaders of most independent agencies for any reason. Rachel?
Selena, thank you. Now to President Trump agreeing to another slate of negotiations with Iran and declaring that a ceasefire is officially over. It comes as U.S. forces ramp up attacks against Iran, hitting more than 170 targets this week.
Yeah, they fucking pushed this way back to the back half of the broadcast. Not important. This is not important at all. Doesn't affect gas prices or the price of food or the price of, goods overall. No, we'll just put this in the back half of the broadcast. Not very important.
It's correspondent Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, President Trump greenlighting a new round of talks with Iran to begin in Oman on Saturday, but doubling down on his declaration that the ceasefire is over. The U.S. ramping up its attacks this week, pounding more than 170 targets in Iran over 2 days. Images showing boats on fire in Iran's port city of Bushehr, in response to Iran attacking commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. But a senior U.S. official tonight saying that the Iranians said firing on the ships was a mistake, an errant part of the Iranian regime that was trying to undermine the deal. We screwed up. Let's keep talking. The threat from Iran is
we screwed up. Let's keep
President
talking.
Trump flew home from the NATO summit in Turkey on the old Air Force One. Officials saying there are differences in security capabilities with the new Qatari-gifted Air Force One. Trump himself saying he was a top target for the Iranians.
I'm number one on the kill list for Iran.
Trump has been considered a target since his first term when he
They took down my thread. They took down my thread that I posted about that they want to kill him. Qatar Force One. They took down my shit, man. It had like 120,000 views. But then I appealed. I appealed the decision. It was reinstated.
Took out the top Iranian IRGC commander in a drone strike. Reports this week said Israel provided intelligence about a new plot against Trump, but tonight the president is pushing back on that report. Trump telling the New York Post Israel came up with nothing. No, saying I've been number one for a long time.
But as for now, Iran and the U.S. are trying once again to work out
a true narcissist to the end.
President Trump has said if Iran keeps on shooting its ships or if they engage in any other hostile act, then we're going to hit them back. Rachel?
Yeah, right now, no end in sight. Okay, Martha, thank you. Now to the family of Nolan Wells seeking transparency and closure.
Yeah, in this story, way the fuck back in the broadcast. Oh my God.
In an emotional new interview, his parents speaking out for the very first time about his death and the investigation. Our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, has more.
Tonight, the anguished family of a Mississippi teen who mysteriously died while boating July 4th is demanding a thorough and transparent investigation.
We just want to know. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home.
18-year-old Nolan Wells took a boat with friends to Horn Island off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Those friends told investigators Wells decided to stay behind. His body was found 2 days later.
We always taught him to, if you go with a group, you stay with a group.
Police are looking at video posted to social media that the family says shows an argument involving Wells, but the contents are unclear. His mother told ABC News his phone was left behind and his Snapchat accounts were empty.
And I was just like, that can't be. Like, I've seen Nolan whenever he snaps, like when he goes and he's having fun.
His Snapchat was empty?
He does videos. Like, there was absolutely nothing.
Tonight, the sheriff's department is asking the family to turn over the phone to investigators.
We're working towards the same goal as the family, okay? We want a thorough investigation.
Authorities believe Wells drowned, Rachel, and say so far there is no evidence of any foul play. But you heard his parents are skeptical, and they've sent their son's body for an independent autopsy. Rachel?
Yeah, an emotional interview. Okay, Aaron, thank you.
Very sus.
Now to the Pentagon releasing its latest trove of files related to UFOs. The dozens of videos, images, and reports, some as recent as last year. Here's Perry Russell.
Tonight, the eerie new video.
Major reversal for the Apache pilots grounded after a July 4th flyover. An update tonight on the fast-spreading foodborne parasite sickening hundreds across the U.S. And a big breakthrough for China's space program that could rival America. Tonight, the 8 Apache pilots suspended after a viral 4th of July beach flyover are now back in the air. The Pentagon lifted the suspensions after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth vowed to fix the situation. The South Carolina National Guard says the pilots were temporarily grounded while officials reviewed the low-altitude pass during the annual Salute from the Shore event. Tonight, a major breakthrough for China's space program. China says it has successfully returned a reusable rocket booster. The booster was caught by a net on a floating platform, a first for an orbital flight. The achievement
that can't do that. Only SpaceX can do that.
Technology pioneered by SpaceX and Blue Origin. When we come back, an important update on that foodborne parasite rapidly spreading across the U.S. To the index now, where tonight a foodborne parasite is rapidly spreading across the U.S. According to the CDC, cyclosporiasis has been reported in Michigan and at least 30 other states. Since May 1st, nearly 1,000 cases have been confirmed, and as of July 9th, another 1,500 are under investigation. The parasite spread through contaminated food or water can cause severe digestive issues. Tonight, a private royal reunion 4 years in the making. King Charles and Queen Camilla hosted Prince Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet at Highgrove House today. It's the first time the king has seen his grandchildren since 2022.
I thought we did a whole revolution to rebel against these guys. Why am I getting their news?
When we come back, we remember aviation pioneer Wally Funk, the oldest woman ever to travel in space.
Anyways, that news sucked. Yeah, get out of here. All right. Other news.
Struck Iranian targets near the Strait of Hormuz for second straight day. Iran reported explosions in multiple locations along the southern coast. Reports say that U.S. military launched cruise missiles at 2 railway bridges in northeastern Iran. Iranian state media reported warplanes over Kish Island and explosions in port cities of Bandar Abbas, Konarak and Chabar. Well, a fireman was reportedly killed after attack
Trump
on
Iran called they want a deal. Well, at the same time,
after both the United States and Iran said they had hit dozens of targets in the initial wave of attacks, which Iranian state television said had killed 8 Iranian military personnel. Meanwhile, the Kuwait army said that its air defenses are confronting hostile missile and drone attacks, while Bahrain's interior ministry reported air raid sirens sounding in the kingdom. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that Iranian officials have called and want to make a deal. Well, earlier in a social media post, Trump had warned that if Tehran struck commercial ships again, the response will get much worse. Listen in.
We just hit them very hard. And I'd say we hit them 20 to 1. Every time they hit us, we're going to hit them 20. And we did it last night. It did a little something today, but it was really retribution for last night.
The U.S. official said Wednesday strikes are wider in scope than Tuesday strikes. The CENTCOM said its forces struck more than 80 targets in Iran on Tuesday. In response, Iran claimed to hit dozens of U.S. military facilities in Kuwait and Bahrain. The Strait of Hormuz remains a flashpoint in the conflict. Since the attacks, Tehran has insisted on controlling the strait, saying it will charge fees for passages and threatening to hit vessels that deviate from its authorized route. Its military struck at least 3 ships in recent days, prompted extensive U.S. strikes against Iranian targets on Tuesday. All 3 vessels recently struck were sailing close to Oman, which had proposed a temporary transit corridor hugging its coastline. Well, maritime traffic had tentatively resumed after Washington and Tehran signed the deal to end hostilities last month, but almost 6,000 seafarers remain stranded in the area.
Yeah, crazy how our news doesn't really cover that. That's amazing. Yeah, I wonder what else I can find on here.
Donald Trump has said that he has agreed to further negotiations with Iran, even as he repeated his assertion that the ceasefire between the longtime foes was over. And this comes as Iranian media reported that a delegation from mediator Qatar was in Tehran after the warring sides exchanged strikes. 3 weeks after Washington and Tehran signed an agreement aimed at turning a months-long ceasefire into a durable peace. The exchange of fire for 2 days this week has threatened a return to full-scale regional war. Although no fresh attacks were reported on Friday, as regional mediators attempted to salvage diplomatic efforts to permanently end the war. Now, in a post on Truth Social, Trump said that the United States is ready to continue negotiations with Iran. However, he also made it clear that the ceasefire agreement between the 2 countries is over. Now, remember earlier this week at a NATO summit also, Trump declared the ceasefire over, suggesting that it was just a waste of time dealing with Tehran. Delegations from US and Iran have held 1 round of direct talks in Switzerland since the signature of their Memorandum of Understanding, as well as indirect negotiations in Qatar. But there has been no sign of diplomatic progress since. Meanwhile, an Axios report has said that the Trump administration is demanding Iran to issue a public statement acknowledging that the Strait of Hormuz remains open. Now, the report read that US seeks a commitment from Iran to stop firing on commercial ships. A separate Axios report claimed that another round of negotiations between US and Iran is expected next week, possibly in Switzerland. On the
Just
other
in
hand,
time
Iran
for the
stopped
stock market
negotiating.
to re-up.
Mohammad Bagher
This guy looks like
has
Tom Cruise in a
asserted that
fat
the
suit.
conflict
What the
with
hell?
US would not end with Tehran's surrender. According to Iranian media, Ghalibaf added that Iran was fully prepared to defend itself if Americans betray the understanding. Now, parallel to this, Iran's US ambassador Amir Saeed Iravani said that US had violated international law and breached the understanding with Iran by carrying out renewed attacks this week. Iravani went on to say that US bears full international responsibility for all legal and political consequences arising from its unlawful action. Listen to this.
The United States has once again violated its obligation by launching and continuing large-scale military attacks against Iran's sovereignty and territorial integrity, including attacks on installations in the southern cities of Iran and several Iranian islands in the Persian Gulf on 7th and 8th of July. These renewed attacks constitute another flagrant violation of Article 2 of the Charter and material breach of the Paragraph 1 of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, under which the United States expressly committed to cease all military actions against Iran and to refrain from the threat or use of force.
Now, amidst a collapsing deal, Qatar, Pakistan and other regional mediators are trying to de-escalate tensions. In the latest, Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani has discussed the regional developments with Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on phone, with both leaders stressing the need for diplomacy to reduce tensions and protect maritime security. In another call with President Masood Pezeshkian, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif urged Tehran to preserve the hard-earned peace. Communication also took place between US and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman spoke with President Trump, while Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud. Back in Iran, a fire was reported at a mini refinery in Iran's western Loristan province. Iranian media, however, reported that the fire did not spread to refinery facilities or storage tanks and was contained soon after.
Meanwhile, JD, where's he at? Hold on. Oh, how do I? That's an image. Can't remember.
And I got to say, it would be so nice to have a governor in this incredible state, one of the most beautiful states in the union, especially this time of year. I love Wisconsin, or as you guys say, Wisconsin. Love Wisconsin, but we have got to. And I got to say, it would be so nice to have a governor in this incredible state, one of the most beautiful
how does he pull off the Wisconsin
union,
accent?
especially this time of year. I love Wisconsin, or as you guys say, Wisconsin. Love Wisconsin, but we have got to.
Still can't do it. He tried twice. Oh man. Yeah. Get this out of here. Meanwhile, anti-DSA people.
Have you guys actually read the DSA platform? And I don't mean the more palatable mainstream version they have on their website.
Oh no, you're gonna make me defend the DSA. God, you're making them sound so much cooler than they are. Go on.
You're using overarching gateway topics like Medicare for all, universal suffrage, and a representative Congress to bring more people into their ideology.
Yeah.
And
Oh no, they're offering good things. So
those actually sound like good ideas. Yeah.
Tyrants.
foundation for their principles is that everything comes back.
Imagine if we had a Congress that was like, you know, made up of the proper representation, like percentage wise, of the people that live in the United States, it would, or at least the people that are citizens in the United States. That would be crazy. Instead of it being majority slanted white men.
Back to class conflict. Where else? We heard that. Let's look at.
Yeah, the title of their party has socialism in it. They're gonna have some
Love how
amount
Dems
of
don't want
Marxism
democracy,
in
yeah.
their ideology. Okay.
the highlights of the DSA platform. Second Constitutional Convention.
Like the founding fathers said we should have every 19 years.
Abolish the Senate. Abolish the filibuster.
Okay.
Non-citizen voting. Defund the police, but I guess we won't need them because they want freedom for all incarcerated people.
Why are they trying to make me like the DSA more? Like,
almost every single one of those things is just unabashedly, objectively good. Yeah, abolish the cops who were founded as slave catchers? Sign me up. Abolish prisons, right, who were literally established to maintain slavery? Sign me up. Abolish the filibuster, which literally y'all use as an excuse to not pass popular legislation? Sign me up. And this is why you should never trust cuck-ass liberals who tell you that you have to compromise your values for electability. They don't give a fuck about electability. Because you know who has shown to be pretty goddamn electable amongst the American populace? DSA candidates. They keep winning elections, and now she's mad at them for winning elections. You don't care about electability.
They hate democracy.
You care about your own fascist ideology being the predominant ideology, not only of the Republicans, but of also the Democrats. And that is why what we should learn from this cycle of Kamala running the most classical electability campaign and losing hard is that their concept of electability is not based on what the Americans want. Is not based on what is good for you, I, or goddamn anyone. It is based on what is good for their corporate donors and for the maintenance of the status quo. So don't give a fuck about electability, because what has been shown to be electable are the drastically popular policies that are, for better or for worse, in DSA's manifesto.
Have you guys actually...
You know what we need? We need Joe Biden back, man. That guy was more status quo than I've ever seen, man. Talk about nothing getting done. Oh shit.
ACLU and the EFF.
Hold on, I need to save this guy actually. Not literally, but in a sense. I'll save him for later actually. Here we go. I'll put him over there. Oh yeah. All right, let's get to it.
Actually going after somebody else. Why are they admitting that they messed up? That DHS was actually going after somebody else, that they made a mistake. Well, I have a theory.
I seen them handcuffing people. I did not see the shooting, but it was since about 6 o'clock. Man, everything was blocked. And we were all protesting because there was a lady and another lady that were calling it a murder because they killed an immigrant. He didn't have to kill him. I mean,
but they did not.
All they had to do was just take him. Why they shoot them? And they were all Hispanics. Why are you going to shoot your own people, man?
And this isn't the first time that we've seen this.
That's a good
Do you
question.
guys remember when Stephen Miller, the man who's actually in charge of running all of this behind...
You know, I know they're going to say that, you know, it's Hispanics that shot him. You know, as a Hispanic, this fucking ghoul is your boss, man. It's so fucking despicable.
Behind the
man.
scenes,
It's
very
disgusting.
uncharacteristically and publicly admitted that the two agents involved in the killing of Alex Preddy maybe, quote, weren't following protocol, but this was
Also,
only an immediately
why aren't they asking
after
Stephen Miller questions, by the way?
ProPublica publicly identified them as Jesus Ochoa and Raimundo Gutierrez, two Border Patrol agents from South Texas? And now once again, in Lorenzo Salgado's case, we're seeing DHS very uncharacteristically
people, man?
admit to a mistake. They stopped the wrong person. And maybe it's all a coincidence. We don't know because these agents have yet to be publicly identified. But it's certainly a pattern worth paying attention to. And if there's one thing I know for sure, a lesson that history has taught us, you can spend years enforcing the system, helping to uphold it, but the moment that you're no longer useful to it, it'll turn on you too.
Every time.
Why are they admitting?
Every single time. Yeah, let's see what PBS NewsHour had to say about this.
The day's other headlines start with the deadly ICE shooting in Houston this week of a Mexican man who had been living in the U.S. for decades. The Department of Homeland Security says Lorenzo Salgado Araujo was not the intended focus of an immigration enforcement operation when the shooting occurred.
Not even the
DHS
right guy.
official tells the NewsHour that, quote, officers were almost at the target's address when they observed a white van with an individual who resembled the target.
So he just fucking looked. We all look alike or what? Like, what the fuck?
Officials claim.
Oh, he was in a white van, of course. Yes, every Mexican that's illegal has a fucking white van, bro.
An
Okay.
officer then fired in self-defense after Salgado Araujo, quote, weaponized his vehicle, but have provided no evidence to support that claim.
Let's see. There's no shooting through the front of the vehicle. There is a looks like there's a rash mark right here on the front of it.
Quote, weaponized his vehicle, but have provided no evidence to support that claim.
Where I'm sure they were cutting him off to make him pull over.
A lawyer for 3 men who were also in the car is demanding an independent investigation.
His only crime was that he fit the description of another man that they were looking for. The agency's versions of the killings have varied. My client's versions of the events are extremely different from what ICE agents are saying, or what the agency is saying.
Federal officials have not yet released the name of the officer who opened fire. The case has reignited public concerns about the Trump administration's aggressive immigration crackdown and the tactics of ICE officers. The family of the teenager whose body was found off the coast of Mississippi is calling for a thorough investigation into their son's death. 18-year-old Nolan Wells had gone on a boat trip to a nearby island with friends during the July 4th weekend, but did not return with them. He was the only black teenager among a group of white
black teenager, you
The
say?
Jackson County Sheriff's Office says no foul play is suspected, but is calling for any witnesses to come forward.
Also, the only
At a press
person that
conference
died.
Today, civil rights attorney Ben Crump said the facts of the case are not adding up, as the mother of Nolan Wells asked for answers.
We're going to make sure that we get to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because Nolan deserves it.
We just want to know what happened
These white people are
and why our
dangerous.
baby didn't come
Yes.
home.
An official autopsy has been conducted, though it could be weeks before results are released. Police say the friends who were on the island with Wells are cooperating with the investigation.
I don't think
The
they're
CDC
cooperating. She wouldn't be saying that if they were cooperating. Yeah. All right. I'm sorry. Back to this.
Letter to the attorney. All right. Can we talk about this letter to the attorney general that I got from the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office? So you guys probably know I've been digging into that deputy that pulled over and
Oh wait, no, that is a different one. Sorry. Damn it! I meant to look at her. I thought I had her other thing pulled up. This one.
2 people from Guatemala were ICE's intended
There we
target
go.
on Tuesday. That's according to reporting from the New York Times. Now, this comes as Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia also stated that Lorenzo Salgado Araujo was not ICE's intended target. J1 here with KPRC on Canal Street, where you can see a memorial continues to grow for 52-year-old Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. He was shot and killed by an ICE agent Tuesday morning in Houston's Magnolia Park neighborhood. Just an hour before the deadly encounter, home surveillance video from his son Ronaldo shows him getting ready for work and entering his white van. Ronaldo says his dad has been in the country for 35 years and was picking up his workers that morning. Surveillance video we obtained shows a closer look at the moments leading up to Lorenzo Salgado Araujo's death. This video we obtained
They were chasing the wrong person. For how long?
shows the white van making a sharp left turn on Wayside onto Canal Street. A black SUV appears to be following closely behind it, bypassing the van in a construction zone into oncoming traffic. Then another black SUV appears to move in on the van, and then the vehicles all turn around and stop. If you zoom into this video, it appears an ICE agent pulls someone from the passenger side of the van. Now, according to Houston Fire Department, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo suffered a gunshot wound to the right side of his abdomen. I spoke to former
The right backside of his abdomen,
Secret Service agent Mike Matranga.
like by his ribs, because that's where they're
My
applying
question
pressure
would
when
be
he's on the
is
ground.
if ICE is holding on to that the officer or agent felt that he or she was in, danger of being run over by this individual. Why didn't that individual take the shot through the windshield or through the driver's side of the car?
The Harris County Medical Examiner's
The car wasn't
office
even moving
ruled
at that
Lorenzo
point.
Salgado Araujo's death as a homicide, with the cause listed as penetrating gunshot wound to the torso. 2 people from Guatemala were
So we know that he was shot pretty much in the back. The back right side.
Shows the clearest images yet of what led up. New video shows the clearest images yet of what led up to the deadly shooting of 52-year-old Lorenzo Salgado Araujo by ICE agents. This video posted by his son shows Araujo leaving for work that morning. Surveillance video later picks him up turning a corner, being tailed by a dark SUV that appears to try to get around the van. Another angle shows a second SUV cutting through a parking lot to catch up. Moments later, the vehicles circle back around, and ICE agents appear to pull someone from the van.
Hey, Daphne.
Salgado then seen here on the ground moments after.
Yeah, bleeding out. This dude's holding on to the gunshot wound like as if that's going to do anything.
Being shot.
Trying to apply
DHS
pressure.
initially said Salgado weaponized his vehicle in an attempt to run over an ICE officer who fired in self-defense.
That is simply
Yeah, that
false.
sounds like dog
Now,
shit, man.
the others inside that van currently in detention are speaking out through their attorney.
I believe that the shots did come from the science, not from
Tonight, Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia says the acting ICE director told her Salgado wasn't the target.
ICE was searching for an individual with a final removal order who officers believe had entered the van.
In a new statement, DHS says they observed a white van with an individual who resembled the target. Late today, Border Czar Tom Homan saying this.
If our agents violate policy, they violate the law, and they'll be dealt with.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
DHS says the officers involved were not wearing body cams, but that all field offices will have them in the next 60 days. Tom?
And never forget, ICE brings in people that are like fucking like, that work at prisons. They're just like prison guards that are chasing a bonus now. They don't have the fucking proper training. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They just give them a gun. They're like, here, go shoot somebody. That's pretty much the way this works. Got a bunch of goons out there doing jack shit. Okay. Oh, this was the video I was looking for from her. Okay. Thank you, G1. Here's the fucking mayor of Houston.
We can't conduct an independent investigation, even if we wanted to, which we've all expressed our desire for. We can't. Last night, HPD was protecting the vigil last night.
Oh, okay.
There's great relationships.
The cops are the
public
good
understands
guys.
We weren't involved. We won't be involved. And as I said when I first got to council, I regret that
It
we even
wasn't
have
us
to deal
this
with
time.
It's a federal issue brought about by the election of a president. We can't.
Oh yeah, the dude. What they call them? The do nothing Democrats. Is that what
The
Trump
right
always
side
called
of
them?
his abdomen from the
Yeah, let's go back to this. Side of his abdomen is where he was shot. Right side of his abdomen.
Lorenzo Salgado was shot on the right side of his abdomen from the passenger side. Here's what the three men who were in the van alongside Salgado said about the shooting, as reported by the Washington Post. A federal officer fired at them almost immediately after exiting his vehicle.
Fired at them almost immediately after exiting his vehicle.
And at no point did the driver, Salgado, veer in his direction, in the ICE officer's direction. DHS claims that Salgado rammed ICE and attempted to run over agents. That is a lie, wrote Jose Trinidad Rojas, 51, in a handwritten statement. It is impossible for them to say that they were going to get run over. There were no officers in front or behind the vehicle. They were on the sides. All of them reiterated that there were never any ICE agents in front of the van. They came in and started shooting from the sides. Juan Proano, the CEO of LULAC, reported yesterday that ICE is now pressuring these witnesses to self-deport. Quote, they are being pressured to sign self-deportation orders. New surveillance video.
So this is not the first time that we've seen that also. I mean, that's one of the reasons that they believe that this is, an easy job, because they can just deport everybody. Anybody that's a witness, they just deport them, or they'll send them to detainment facilities, and then you never hear back from them. They believe that, nobody's going to speak up. Nobody's going to do anything to fight back, basically. You have that overconfidence in these guys that are severely under-equipped, both physically, as far as fitness goes, mentally as far as training goes. And they have their own equipment, so equipment wise as well. That being ICE, of course. And they just give them free range to do whatever they want. They're like, here, go capture somebody, and if it's not the right guy, then just capture somebody that looks like the right guy, and we'll deport them too. Like this is the attitude that ICE has when operating like this.
Shows Salgado pulling over onto the sidewalk as ICE agents chase the van on foot. Remember,
And look,
seconds.
You can see here, this is actually really good video right here. The panel of his car, the panel of the van is missing already. You see that right there? They already fucking rammed him on the side.
From police, drone footage shows there is no damage to the front of the construction van. There is no evidence that Salgado rammed ICE. This is a clear pattern. DHS lies to cover up their crimes, and then they try to deport the witnesses.
And that's the other thing that ICE does all the time is they ram the cars. They'll remember the wasn't there like a white lady that they rammed, and then she was like on her way to like a doctor's appointment, and they yanked her out of the car, and they said that, oh well, they actually ran into her car, and they were like, oh, you hit us, and this is a ramming incident now, so we're gonna yank you out of the car and fucking detain you. Like that's their strategy. Their strategy is to make contact, and once they make contact with you, well, you ram their car. It's time for you to either die or get detained. One of the two.
Geraldo Luna's
very IDF like.
Campos, a Cuban immigrant, was murdered in Camp East Montana in Fort Bliss, Texas on January 3rd. The medical examiner ruled that Campos' death was a homicide from, quote, asphyxia due to neck and torso compression. Santos Jesus Flores, a fellow detainee and witness, told the AP that Lunos Campos was handcuffed as at least 5 guards held him down and one put an arm around his neck and squeezed until he was unconscious. An immigration judge issued an order of removal against Flores just 5 days later. Another witness, Fromenta, was served a removal notice just 3 days after he was interviewed by the Washington Post. Houston's mayor, John Whitmire, has refused to allow the Houston Police Department to investigate the shooting. However, the Harris County District Attorney has initiated an investigation and has reported that the feds are preventing them from accessing evidence, saying the DA's office, quote, did not have the same level of access that we do in almost any other officer-involved shooting. If this is a justified shoot, why is the DA's office not allowed to see the evidence?
Yeah.
Go to this link to sign LULAC's petition to demand a full...
Yeah, if it was a justified shooting, why aren't you providing the evidence? If everything's fine and on your side, why not be an open book about it?
Full and independent investigation into Lorenzo Salgado's murder. Please help spread the word and demand accountability. And on my profile is a pinned video that shows 10 documented cases from the last year where ICE shot somebody and then lied about it to cover up their crimes. Lorenzo Salgado was shot.
Nobody trusts ICE. Nobody trusts this administration. Nobody trusts any of these motherfuckers involved, man. For good reason.
There is concern over possible delay in medical attention for Lorenzo Salgado Araujo after he was fatally shot on Tuesday morning by an ICE officer. According to Representative Silvia Garcia, they are looking into this matter. They're trying to figure out exactly how long it took for Mr. Lorenzo Salgado Araujo to be taken to a hospital. They're also looking to gather 911 calls to determine a timeline. There has been a cascade of information in the last few hours. We also know that almost immediately after the shooting, all of the ICE agents involved in the incident were removed from the area, and it is unclear if they are still on duty. There is concern over possible delay in...
They shot him, they let him bleed out. But yes, this is my post here. Yeah, they rammed him. It's very obvious. In these pictures here, like the panel is missing from the side of the van. They rammed into his car. They rammed into the van. This is what ICE did. You can see the tire marks. And from here in this part of the video, you can see blood is coming down towards his stomach. He's bleeding out. Him lightly applying pressure like this is gonna do jack shit of all, man. But yeah, they let him bleed out on the fucking concrete right there, just on the sidewalk. And this is the only area where there's a pool of blood. So, I mean, that leads me to believe that he was shot outside of his vehicle. When he exited the vehicle, he got out, probably said, what is going on? What are you guys, like, he's not trying to run. If he was trying to run, he would be somewhere far away from his van. They fucking shot him. They shot him, he went down, he bled out. Cold-blooded murder, man. There's not much more to it than that. Yeah, this is another video. This shows him getting into his van. Like I said, the panel's still there. The van was not beat up. He kept his van in pristine condition. This dude was proud of his job, proud of his work. And then what do?
Have a devastating update. Lorenzo Salgado Araujo's family members have been unable to claim his body. It appears that immigration officers stripped him
his fucking
of
body,
any
man.
form of ID after he was shot and eventually transferred to the hospital, which led to him being classified as a John Doe. As you could imagine, being able to claim their father's body is a priority for his children.
They stripped him of his ID and then filed him as a fucking John Doe so that they can't get to his body. This is to make the process even slower, but also to fuck over the family.
Right now, according to LULAC representatives, they are making them jump through hoops to be able to complete this process. They also want to be able to get his phone back, any other items, other belongings that he had, his tools, as well as the van that he was driving. And there is a call to preserve all evidence in this case, to make sure that evidence is preserved for further investigations.
I mean, as we know with ICE, like, they'll steal your shit. Like, if you have valuables in your car and they're towing your car, they're gonna steal all your stuff.
Not only is this family already suffering after
There's plenty of videos of them ransacking people's property.
Was fatally shot by an immigration officer here in Houston. But now they have to deal with all of the difficulties that they are experiencing to be able to claim his body. We are back on scene. People continue to visit the memorial, which has candles, balloons, flowers. This is the same place where last night there were hundreds of people gathered for a vigil that turned into a peaceful march. I have a devastating update.
It's fucking disgusting, man. But yeah, I compare ICE to the IDF. This is the same shit that they do. Israel's holding Palestinian detainees' bodies for bargaining despite no hostages in Gaza. It's the same shit that they do. Same shit Israel does. Fucking and what are they gonna do? They're gonna maybe find these guys guilty of murder. Is that gonna stop ICE from going on the streets, killing more people? I don't think so. I doubt it, at least. We need to come up with a better fucking solution. Fucking defund ICE. Get these motherfuckers out of here. All right, has anybody seen Mitch? I heard he had an affair with Hassan. That Mitch is not denying.
There's another issue that you are tracking, Lisa. This has to do with the health of the former Senate leader, Republican Senate leader, Mitch McConnell. What more do you know?
Okay. Yeah, let's get into this. I know a lot of our viewers are paying attention to this. McConnell was admitted to the hospital 3 weeks ago. But beyond that, we don't know very much from his office. His office has not said why he was admitted. They only issued this statement. This was his most recent statement. From a spokesperson. The senator continues to improve and is working closely with his staff in Kentucky and Senate matters. On Kentucky and Senate matters while the Senate is
Priscilla
out of
Thompson,
session.
thank you.
At the same time, we know there is EMS
Conduct an
audio
independent
tape from a dispatch on the date that he was admitted to the hospital, June 14th, indicating someone from his home was given CPR for cardiac arrest. We haven't been able to verify that that was McConnell himself.
Hold on. Let me just repeat that one more time here.
Staff in Kentucky and Senate matters, on Kentucky and Senate matters while the Senate is out of session. At the same time, we know there is EMS audio tape from a dispatch on the date that he was admitted to the hospital, June 14th, indicating someone from his home was given CPR for cardiac arrest. We haven't been able to verify that that was McConnell himself, but a lot of people believe. What are the chances that
someone from his home was given CPR for cardiac arrest? And Mitch McConnell's been missing for a while. I wonder who that person was.
Someone else in McConnell's home who was admitted in the hospital that day had a cardiac arrest. There have been vast conspiracies about this. Some of our viewers have heard them probably, but I have spoken to McConnell contacts who say they have texted back and forth with him.
Oh, okay.
Others have publicly said they've had
they've been texting back and forth with him.
So this brings up the question, why do we not know? Why is he not saying what happened to him?
I didn't know he texted that much. Obviously, he's been sexting with Hassan, so...
4 years old. He is
if he can text, he can post on Twitter, right?
Person who served the longest as a party leader in the Senate. And one thing you and I both know from covering him, there's no one more disciplined.
There he is with
and
his phone.
Perhaps more private about his health concerns. This is not his first health concern. He froze up twice before in press conferences before he left leadership. So I believe we probably won't know what has happened to him until he wants to tell us. But there is a real issue of disclosure, especially we're hearing that from people in his state.
Lisa Desjardins, thanks as always.
You're welcome.
A third of Americans spend at least 30% of their total income on housing. Oh, yeah, that was the housing piece that they did earlier. I did. I just like the music. All right, what else we got? Oh.
Real slow so you smooth. I'm going to go ahead and say this real slow so you smooth brains can understand me. Mitch McConnell's health is none of your business. I mean, what's it matter anyway? It's not like he's out here making decisions for the rest of us.
Right?
You can't just go around speculating about a man's health.
That's
Who
illegal.
do you think he is? Dementia Joe Biden, who's got dementia? I mean, asking if he's dead or alive, that's a HIPAA violation. I hope you know that. Why would you even think something's wrong? It's not like he's froze up like Windows 95 every other press conference for the last year while looking like he got bit by a zombie and didn't tell nobody. And by the way, that's not elder abuse. That's just having somebody else pick you up by your bootstraps.
HIPAA violation.
Strong as a bull, tough as an ox. Whichever's stronger, that's the one he is. He's a 84-year-old dynamo. You know, as a matter of fact, I just talked to
and to think he's only 4 years older than Trump. I don't think Trump's gonna go a third term. I'm sorry, a fourth term. It just doesn't seem like it's in the either Iran's gonna get him, Israel's gonna get him, or he's just gonna go the way of Mitch, right?
for 20 minutes on the the telephone. Oh, wait, is Mitch McConnell dead? They should really tell somebody. Is he dead? It's like you people, and I do mean you people, never heard of a social media break or a media break or a life break. He'll be back in the spotlight. It's just that the pet cemetery sometimes it takes a little bit to kick in, especially if you used it before like Mitch has. I'm going to go ahead and say this real slow.
He'll be back. Don't worry. It's fine. It's going to be fine, guys. Yeah, we could have Mitch revitalized. He'll be back. Don't worry. He's just got to recharge his batteries a little bit, you know, and be right back on the horse. He'll be back in denying minorities' rights and you know, LGBTQIA members' rights. You know, just oppressing communities everywhere. What would we do without him? Being annoying and harmful in no time. Yeah, exactly.
Despite a ceasefire in place, the Israeli
Meanwhile,
military
actual
operations
news.
haven't stopped in Gaza. Thousands are still suffering from displacement and destruction. But now, besides this tense situation, there's a new public health emergency emerging. The United Nations says that thousands of chickenpox cases have been recorded in the past few weeks
Thousands?
in Gaza. Take a look.
The gunfire in Gaza has not fallen silent. Israeli tanks, naval gunfire and demolition operations have been reported across multiple parts of the Gaza Strip.
They have yet to stop bombing them daily. Israel has yet to stop bombing Gaza daily.
Local sources said heavy fire targeted Gaza City's neighborhood, while the Israeli military expanded its buffer zone in the area, leaving some Palestinian families trapped. The strike was at an encampment. As you can see, for the displaced, there is nothing. Look, he had planted flowers and trees and told me, "Come see what I planted, Auntie." There is no in the tent. His son even came to me this morning, saying hello and good morning, and left for the test with my son. Reports say...
Sorry, I was laughing at your comment. The Kern Collider was turned off so Mitch's molecules couldn't handle the reality. His heart gave out. That's how fast he came back from that, man. Who knew what it was powering?
Israeli naval vessels opened fire off the coast of Khan Yunis. At the same time, restrictions on humanitarian aid, commercial goods and civilian movement remain in place.
We were staying in the tents on the understanding that this area was safe and people live in tents. By God, I was asleep when suddenly a missile struck. We came here and found the impact. There were martyrs and wounded. People were carrying them to the ambulances and they loaded them onto carts and took them all to the hospitals.
Everyone in Gaza is a target. Infants, pregnant women, the elderly, the young and old. All of Gaza is a target, and 2 million Palestinians are targeted, and we don't know what we have done.
Another crisis is spreading rapidly. The United Nations says nearly 9,300 cases of chickenpox were reported across Gaza in just 2 weeks. The outbreak is being driven by conditions that have become all too common across the enclave. Severe overcrowding, limited access to clean water, poor sanitation, accumulating waste, and the breakdown of basic health services. Around 1.7 million Palestinians, nearly 80% of Gaza's population, are now living in about 1,600 displacement sites, many without adequate shelter, clean water, or hygiene facilities. Health workers...
Israel killed another World Central Kitchen worker. Didn't make the news. I mean, it made my news, but it did make the news. Did not make the news this time.
Are distributing medicines, expanding water trucking, chlorination, sanitation, campaigns, and community outreach. But the UN warns that the response remains far from enough. It is calling for unhindered humanitarian access, more funding, and an expansion of health services.
It really doesn't make the news anymore at all, yeah.
Worsening.
We've been saturated with so many fucking atrocities that Israel has committed that nobody just... They're like, oh yeah, that's still going on. Okay, well, yeah, it's been normalized. Yeah.
While chickenpox is often mild in children, it can cause serious complications for newborns, pregnant women, and people with weakened immune systems. The outbreak is the latest reminder
like
that
lethal
in Gaza,
to adults?
the humanitarian emergency is no longer only about the war.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't chickenpox lethal to adults that never contacted it before? It sure is. You know, it's almost like they're just like Israel's just torturing Gaza at this point, which is definitely their MO. Probably speaking of Israel,
you've got organizations like the ACLU and the EFF who take an above-board approach to fight for their point of view. And thankfully, we live in a beautifully democratic, capitalistic country where we can fight in court. And I have a lot of respect for those groups because they have reasonable debates and we follow the law. And then unfortunately, there's terroristic organizations like DFLOG, whose primary motivation is chaos. They are closer to Antifa than they are anything else.
This guy is not a fan of Antifa.
And that, I think, is unfortunate.
Hey, if you don't like Antifa, that might make you the fascist little guy.
Because we don't want chaos, or I don't want chaos. I like law and order. I like a society that has a bedrock of safety. So for those groups...
law and order and surveillance doesn't necessarily mean safety. You could just ask the women that have been stalked by cops that are using Flock and other type of surveillance programs to track them down.
I think it's just disappointing that they haven't chosen a more constructive mannerism to try to get what they want, which they have a right to have, but that's why we have a democratically elected process.
We have a democratically elected process that's fueled by money. So that way the people with money get everything that they want, and the people without money, well, you go to jail.
Right, like we're not forcing Flock on anyone.
It sounds like you are.
Elected officials know that as a community, you want to be safe.
Fucking eat shit. Fuck off. Fucking dumbass shit. Yeah, Google NSPM 7. Anyways, yeah, AI. Man cannot comprehend the genius of AI.
Like O'Reilly. I ain't joking, nigga. My name ain't Ricky Smiley. Fall up in the club and we start wildin'. These niggas out here snitching. They with the rat pack. Hit them with the chopper, that's the rat trap. Find them in that trash bag off the interstate. House full of gangsta niggas never renovate. You snitching, you like O'Reilly. I ain't joking.
I guess that's one way to get around the cabin camera monitoring. Who knew? A simple child's drawing could fool AI. And a doll head. AI cannot comprehend the genius of man. Anyways, here's Naomi Klein.
The promise of generative AI is that it can think for us, right? And that is a truly fascist idea.
AI is a fascist idea.
Thinking. And so our power is in our ability to think with each other, to generate genuinely new ideas. If they get what they want, like if they summon their digital god and get AGI, it kills all the jobs, right?
And what do we do then? I feel like we never talk about that. What do we?
And in the meantime, all it's doing is producing glitchy slop, and it's making people's electricity bills go up. We've seen this most clearly.
But everybody loves glitchy
most people
slop.
thought of him as probably the highest profile green tech entrepreneur on the planet. And this is the guy who decides he's going to power Grok with 35 methane powered rigged together.
Yeah, and poison a city.
And poison a city. So we really shouldn't play along with this idea that it can be green. There's no way to greenwash this. And they say things like, oh, it'll solve climate change, but it's just silly. We will either transition our economy off of fossil fuels and lower our emissions in time to avoid maybe 2 degrees, or we will build a world covered in data centers in order to summon a digital god.
It sounds like we're going towards the world covered in data centers.
And their extreme wealth derangement is connected to this because they are smart enough to know that they're setting the world on fire. We're in a negative feedback loop because they need more and more money to fortress themselves against the hellscape that they are creating. Once they feed enough data and have enough power and have enough compute, eventually they'll have this very ill-defined thing called AGI or superintelligence, the point at which the majority of human economic activity can be replaced by AI. There's a tragedy here, I have to say, Alex, with the fact that we were just starting. I mean, we weren't all the way there by
We're trying
any
to
means, but we were
create the
just
AI
starting to
god.
see
Is that what I'm
some of the numbers
understanding
go in the
here?
right directions around the price
I
of
mean,
renewables,
not we, but
around big
you know,
economies
the
like
people
India
with
and
all the
Pakistan
money.
really getting serious, and China about electrification and renewables. And at this very moment, right, when markets are starting to collapse, what do you know? This lifeline is extended to the fossil fuel sector, and it's just build all of these data centers and power them with fossil fuels. Donald Trump calls
Yeah, that's the other
AI
thing is like that people don't talk about enough is that these AI data centers, they all have generators. They all have like backup generators that they've installed because you know if power goes out in a in you know in like a natural disaster type of occurrence. Um but instead of using them as emergency generators, they're just using them because that's how they're getting around not using the like local power grid that's probably inadequate.
data centers.
So you got like these data centers that are running all the time, running on generators, making huge amounts of fucking noise, noise pollution, and on top of the actual pollution that you know that is caused by running that all the time. So it's they're just constantly feeding it gas, fossil fuel, to the generators. There's a lot of AI facilities like that.
There's electricity eating monsters, and he considers it a compliment. This is actually how he got on board with AI because he didn't used to like it. He didn't start talking about AI for the first few months of this presidential campaign. What seems to have changed his mind was when a bunch of Silicon Valley venture capitalists, a few months before the 2024 presidential election, explained to him just how much electricity, specifically fossil fuel energy, they wanted to use. And then he got on board with it because he had already said to the fossil fuel companies, if you give me $1 billion, I'll make all your dreams come true. He can do a lot of things. You know, he can roll back all kinds of climate regulations and he can pull the US out of the Paris Accord.
Hate Kalshi AI
he can't
ads.
actually create new markets for the
Hate Kalshi AI ads and was the 250 America stuff all AI generated? I think it was.
These companies. And that is what AI has done. So it has extended this lifeline. I don't see how it can be made sustainable, which is not the same as saying that I don't see potential.
Did I send you the AI in my head post? I just used the AI in my head. Well, you should all just use the AI in our heads.
Positive uses for AI, you know, in the climate sphere, but they're not these large language model, you know, generative AI massive build outs. Those are separate issues that are being conflated very deliberately. You know, they're using the good things that we want, like we want to use this for medical research. We want to use this for, you know, more efficiency for use of renewables. You have the irony that at the same time as this is being rolled out, we have attacks on that kind of research going on across post-secondary education. This is an opportunity for us to ask, what is our economy for? What is technology for? What are humans for? What do we value?
Capitalism.
Because
we're the blood lifeline that greases the wheels of capitalism.
So out of control that we've actually gotten to the point where, you know, the richest men in the world are telling us that they're summoning digital gods or digital demons, you know, if it's Elon Musk or if it's Sam Altman, literally saying that they can foresee a future where the entire world is covered in data centers. And then Google comes in and says, or maybe we'll just circle outer space with data centers. So,
circle outer
if that
space
is not the
with
future we want, we clearly have to dream a different future and we clearly have to make very different decisions. Once Trump was brought on board, the AI bubble, he aligned himself with these Silicon Valley executives. We all saw the picture from inauguration and everyone said, oh, what's going on? We thought these guys were liberals. They determined that they wanted a Wild West for AI. The way to get as rich as possible was just eliminating even the mildest kinds of regulations that were being introduced by the Biden administration, by the European Union. They don't want any of it. They want the kind of frontier that, Mark Andreessen had in the early days of the internet, when they convinced governments that they couldn't tax things that went on the internet because they needed a frontier. So they wanted AI frontier. They don't want any rules. There were modest regulations that the Biden administration was introducing, things like on federal lands, if you build a data center, it has to be fueled with renewable energy, things like that. So sensible regulations. And they did not want that. And they rebelled. They backed Trump. And Trump, immediately declared an energy emergency, which opened the faucet for all of these coal plants that were being decommissioned to be brought back online, nuclear power plants to be brought back online, massive new coal, new LNG infrastructure, the kinds of things that Elon Musk is doing in Memphis, where he's just jerry-rigging these massive gas-fired methane turbines, creating his own unpermitted power plant. It's all because they've declared an emergency, right? Their definition of U.S.
It's
AI
worse than I thought.
Is the whole world using American tech. That's the way they've defined it. This is where we are. We have to understand that.
It's also not just the U.S. I mean, watching the Starmer administration accelerate data center zoning and planning and usurping local councils and saying we want to build these things in green belts because basically the future of our economy is this vague conception of AI growth. It does feel like there are lots of, center-left governments that aren't as autocratic.
With Starmer, I think AI is just another face for austerity, right? I mean,
the liberals will save us.
The other thing that's happening is that because these companies have built out all this capacity, I mean, we mentioned the bubble, they need customers really badly, and the market is not liking their product, right? We're hearing more and more that businesses aren't seeing the kinds of efficiencies that they promise. So there is no market for what they have just built. There's a huge gap. And unfortunately, governments are kind of marks a little bit, right? So it's like, and so, by the way, I say with much chagrin, our universities, where I work, right? I think the bailout has started, right? AI Now has been flagging this, but the bailout has started with these contracts, right? Where our governments are buying very faulty tech. And they're like, thank you very much.
Gobbling it up. Nobody wants this.
No, this is literally the plot of every dystopian film any of us have ever seen. We very actively don't want this. We've been scaring ourselves with it for a really long time. They're like, and then they're just like, let's just use it as a how-to guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a three-legged stool, right? Of this emergent fossil tech economy, where one leg is fossil fuel, which are looking for their new market. And then the other leg of the stool is the state. And that includes the police state and the military state, which is also gobbling up these technologies. So that's what's holding this together. The public is really not part of this at all.
That's crazy.
They're reinforcing each other at the moment.
That's why they keep telling you, at work, oh, just use AI. Like people that work in office jobs. They're like, oh yeah, just use the AI that we're paying $1 bajillion for. Please use it. Please use but the public isn't really involved in this too much. It's definitely the government sector.
For us to understand that the fossil fuel sector was panicking about the fact that, solar was for the first time cheaper than gas when coal plants were being decommissioned, and they're holding up this sort of notional nuclear fusion, which, how many notional technologies can we pile on top of each other, right? Like AGI is notional, and it's going to be fueled by a notional energy source. But in the meantime, what we're going to actually have is fossil fuels fueling AI slop, because those are the two things we know for sure. So we've got slop fueling slop, and it's a fantastic economy.
Fucking can't wait. Yeah, every ad you see is actually police surveillance.
You've done it all. You're using a VPN, you're paying for Delete Me, you're even using an encrypted email service. All with the promise of making your digital whereabouts unknown and eliminating your online footprint. These companies are selling you the idea that you are completely anonymous. And yet, I am able to purchase data that would lead me directly back to you, all without breaking the law. Today, I'm going to expose how your data is collected, how companies and law enforcement can buy your data, and an organization that surveils your every move. They know where you live, where you work, your pattern of life. By visiting a website, your digital identity is being sold without your knowledge, but how? So we have NBC News right here on Google Chrome. Gas prices fall below $4 for the first time since March.
Gonna go
I have
drive
not
me
checked the
around.
gas prices today, but seems unlikely. So we are here. You see this ad? Here's the scoop. The scoop. Now, NBC has dedicated their website real estate to be filled with ads because they need companies to pay for ad space
to pay for their website.
So normally
Because
when
they
you
want more
load
money.
a web page on a browser, such as Chrome, which is what I had used for this demonstration, you get ads. So we go into Inspect, into the Network tab, and this is all the stuff that is being loaded on this web page at this time. If you search location in the search field, and this URL, you go to this URL, and it outputs your location in JSON. And if you look up OneTrust, this is their custom geolocation integration. So this leverages Cloudflare to perform a reverse IP lookup that will return the general
Cloudflare.
location of the user. So this embedded cookie into this website pulls my geolocation from my IP. So that is how they track your location within a website. But what information can they get out of you from the ads? You can see down here it says auction price. This is NBC selling ad space on their website via an auction. Different companies bid on ad space on this website in real time. And if your data matches the ideal customer profile that they're looking for, then they win the bid and their ad is shown. So when you search pre-bid, you can actually see all of the bidders that are bidding on the ad space for this website. And all of these are usually just ad placement companies. And these advertising companies have companies that they work with that help with the auction and the bidding and the ad placements and things like that. Now these bids are meant for advertisers to bid on website real estate to get their ads shown. But data brokers also tap into this bid stream where all of your personal
is
data
the
is
new
being
oil.
shown to advertisers. It is also being harvested by data brokers. So data brokers can link your online activity via an ad ID. This would be my ad ID or my creative ID. It can go by both. And with this, it shows my computer's IP address, my device type, my user agent, my location, all packaged within this winning bid. Now, the goal of an ad ID is to build a profile about you across all of the websites that you visit. So how do we go from posting iFunny memes to our every move being tracked by law enforcement? Now, if you've ever seen the do not track pop-up on your iPhone that permits or denies third-party
says ask
tracking,
app
which
not to
comes
track.
with an ad ID. Because if your browser profile, for example, is saved on your computer, and then you have the same browser profile on your phone, everything's linked, you have the same ad ID, third-party tracking, all comes down to this ad ID. Now, since you share the same ad ID, it lets data brokers compare notes about you. Now, these bundles of data contain personal information, such as your location, which is very important for law enforcement, your birth year, your gender, and your search terms that you search on the internet. So I was doing some digging, and I found that this location data has been used against people. Top U.S. Catholic Church official resigns after cell phone data used to track him on Grindr and to gay bars. While the information is typically stripped of obviously identifying fields, like a user's name or phone number, it can contain everything from age and gender to device ID. It's possible for experts to de-anonymize some of this data and connect it to real people. No federal laws prohibit buying this data, which is true. So if a random Catholic church can out a priest and get him to resign based on his phone data and his ad ID, device ID data, what do you think law enforcement can do? Now this is fog data science. And this is another one of those quote unquote data analytics companies, which if you see data analytics companies, it means they just collect all data about you or buy it from data brokers and then aggregate it into a software to sell it to whoever. In this case, Fog's selling their data analytics to police. Now, this is Fogg's marketing materials
To
and
police.
what they use to pitch themselves to law enforcement for law enforcement to buy them. So it says mobile device operating system manufacturers provide the capability for app developers to utilize a shared advertising ID from a smart device. That data is then collected and resold to marketing companies for consumer behavior analysis. App providers allow users the ability to opt out, which
apps such as coffee shops, retailers, etc. continuously broadcast geolocations and timestamp data through Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell towers.
is the iPhone pop-up example. However, users typically accept and approve sharing by default. Now, they do this via their Reveal portal. Fogg's Reveal portal is a simple interface that integrates easily into the investigative workflow, and it helps in identifying possibly involved individuals to include their
There's
timelines,
no way this could
travels,
track down the wrong
last known
person,
geographical locations, and patterns of life. Worldwide geolocation lookups on people based on advertiser IDs and third-party tracking, which basically everyone has enabled, and you do not need a warrant to look any of this up. You can just look it up. Now, you may be asking yourself, this sounds like a major privacy violation worldwide. Why isn't this illegal? Well, there is a legal loophole. The US Supreme Court ruled that police would need a warrant to access historical or current geolocations from cell phone companies, basically people's phones. But this does not apply to people buying data from data brokers. And in this case, it does not apply to Fogg because their company buys data from data brokers and then they sell their software to police. And our legal system does nothing to prevent this. So what can you do about it
free
right
market
now?
provides.
Disable data sharing on your phone. You can disable ad tracking and the mobile ad ID on your phone in your phone settings. If you see the app pop up on your phone, always click Ask App Not to Track, unless it's for like maps, which you need geolocation for that. So hopefully this brings more awareness on how apps and websites are tracking you just by you using them, and how these data analytics companies are using your data against you. So make sure to like, subscribe, punch all the buttons in the face, and I'll see you in the next one.
Fantastic. Yeah, we might be cooked, guys. Sorry, don't worry. Private equity or private credit will save everything.
Things are looking increasingly bleak.
One financial crisis after another.
It's going to crash the economy. Do it.
Bang. Thunk. Kaboom.
Kaboom.
Kablamo.
Bam!
Kablamo!
Get used to those sounds. The economy's about to crash.
We are headed for a U.S. dollar crisis.
The cascading impacts of this economic crisis haven't even begun.
Oh no, my money.
I'm worried about something worse than a recession.
When this thing crashes, it's going to be like mashing up the dot-com thing with the financial crisis because this is so much larger.
This hurts. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
Okay, so last fall, two companies went out of business. First Brands and Tricolor.
First Brands Group filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection last September and has been laying off workers across the country.
Irving-based Tricolor has filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy and says it plans to liquidate.
It is also the target of a federal fraud investigation.
The speed with which First Brands' finances have unraveled has cast a spotlight on the due diligence standards in the booming private credit markets.
As far as events that don't matter to me, this ranks somewhere on that list. But it should have ranked much lower. Because when FB and TC went KO, it raised some interesting questions. How did these two companies, generating billions of dollars of revenue, suddenly come crashing down? The answer, turns out, is a little BSing. Here's the short story. So, First Brands and Tricolor were undone by their debt obligations. Both companies had taken out substantial loans, hundreds of millions of dollars worth, and were only able to do so by lying to their lenders about their collateral. On the face of it, this shouldn't be anything more than a simple case of fraud. Except that the reason these companies were able to get such huge loans by lying is thanks to a new trendy thing called
private credit.
Private credit. Private credit. I mean, it's nothing new, but it is kind of new.
An alternative type of lending to companies that doesn't involve traditional banks.
Everyone's heard about private equity by now, but for the last 10 years, private credit has flown under the radar as PE's secret little freak son. Quietly, this industry's been growing and minting a new class of Wall Street billionaires, including man waiting for the LSD to hit, Mark Lipschultz. And it's been doing this with a brilliant new innovation in the financial space: lending money and charging interest.
Well, duh.
Unlike private equity firms, who invest and sometimes even buy entire companies outright, private credit really just makes loans. And it turns out that's a very lucrative business. These days, private credit is estimated to be a $3 trillion industry, up $3 trillion from zero at some point in the past. And it got to such towering heights by doing what's called shadow banking. Essentially being a bank, but without all those pesky banking regulations. See, after 2008, a lot of things changed in banking and finance. Interest rates went to zero, government and corporate bonds had very low yield, and banks were regulated much more carefully to avoid a repeat of what was then called messing everybody's shit up real bad like.
Soaring gas prices, falling home prices.
Why would the economy crash this time?
2008 was a bad dream. It was a bloody year on Wall Street and a real capitulation for a system run amok.
Now, all of this had two consequences. One, banks didn't want to make risky loans anymore, especially to smaller companies. Two, people with a lot of money suddenly didn't have an easy way to print more of it on demand. Enter private credit.
It's been emergent and front of page now for maybe the past 5
Where's the money
to 7
coming
years.
from for private credit?
And yes, everybody's getting involved, but it can't all be just rainbows and unicorns, right?
So private credit firms created a new lending industry that, unlike regular banks, would be detached from individual consumer deposit accounts. Instead, they would be courting large institutional investors like pension funds and university endowments, as well as super rich people to finance their operations. This allowed them to avoid a lot of the regulatory requirements of a bank. Most importantly, letting them lend to risky companies without being forced to do thorough checks beforehand or report the details of this lending to regulators, aka shadow banking. Now, the trade-off for being less careful and considerate and emotionally intelligent than a regular bank, though, was that those loans came with a higher interest rate. Now, that's not great for small, already pretty stressed out businesses, but they don't have much of a choice. However, it is interesting for investors. Interesting, you get it. End of the day, private credit makes loans, gets steady interest payments over time, investors get their cut, companies that couldn't get loans do, and everybody's happy. Until...
JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon issued a warning on the earnings call Tuesday.
Where you see one cockroach, there are usually more.
Dimon was referring to the bankruptcies recently of the auto dealer Tricolor Holdings and auto parts conglomerate First Brands Group.
How much are ordinary people at risk of
I was
being
told
caught
everything's
up in
fine.
all this?
Ordinary people's dollars are on the line just like they were in 2008.
Tricolor and First Brands shed a light on how flimsy private credit loans can be. After 10 years of just pouring money into Blue Owl, Apollo, Ares, investors suddenly realized there may not actually be a free money tap here. People taking out loans from private credit might not pay these loans back, meaning investors' billions could be tied up in another ninja situation, giving everyone war flashbacks to 2015, when The Big Short came out.
Well, my firm offers ninja loans. No income, no job. I just leave the income section blank if I want. Corporate doesn't care.
If 1% of companies don't pay back their loans, that's fine. When it hits 4%, investors start to worry. By the end of 2025, Fitch, one of the major credit rating agencies, announced defaults on private credit loans hit 9.2.
Wait, what? Oh, that's bad. Oh, not good. That is really bad.
The reason we're talking about private credit at all is because this prompted a massive exodus of investors from the industry. Rich people are freaking out and pulling out. Insert crass joke here, all caps.
Wow.
Hey everybody, just wanted to take a quick second to plug some merch. As always, I want to make sure I respect your time, so if you're not interested, Here's the
Hold on.
timelines delivered before I had to record this so I could show you in person. But as usual, I waited too long to order, so please enjoy instead this amazing shirt. I truly could not do this without you. And now, back to the show. Look, the problem is, private credit firms don't just let you take your money out. They don't have it. Their whole thing is loaning it out. They usually cap redemptions, investors pulling out, at 5% per quarter. But with all this default news going around, Blackstone was getting redemption requests up to 8%, BlackRock, 9%, Morgan Stanley, 11%, Cliffwater, 14%. Already, investors have tried, unsuccessfully, to pull out $13 billion this year, ultimately revealing not just a lack of trust in a multi-trillion-dollar industry, but in the entire small to medium business sector that it's holding up. And things are only going to get worse.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm!
Now that the black box on private credit loans is being forced open, people are realizing 3 things. 1, there's a war. If you thought 9% of companies defaulting was bad, wait until all these risky businesses get hit with a recession and rising energy costs at the same time. 2, AI is a problem. A lot of private credit money is tied up in software companies. Private credit typically makes deals on a 5 to 7 year window, and 5 to 7 years ago, nobody knew that AI was going to tear through the coding monkey business. The better AI gets, the more these software companies that felt like a pretty safe bet, adding guardrails to the private credit portfolio, suddenly look like they're actively pushing private credit off a cliff. 3, AI and wars are a problem.
Oh.
Private credit, like everyone else, has got its sticky little fingers and AI's sticky little honeypot. It's basically the only industry that's growing, so it made sense.
Good thing we have perfectly sane people at
with
the
the
helm.
war in Iran meaning helium shortages, and helium shortages meaning you can't make chips for AI companies to eat up, all those promises to be profitable in 2030 are starting to look like another bad gamble by PC. And up until now, you'd be forgiven for thinking, like me, this all sounds perfectly appropriate for my list of things I don't care about. Who cares that billionaires are in shambles over their backdoor gambles? But unfortunately, they dragged us
what's it got to
into
do with
this
me?
mess. When private credit became Wall Street's sexy new thing, all that never again stuff about 2008 flew out the window. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, wanted a cut of the only thing in banking actually making the big bucks, meaning even regular sun-soaked traditional banks like JP Morgan getting into the private credit business. And all these other normal banks getting in on the action by making loans to private credit companies, even as private credit companies started taking riskier bets in a now overcrowded field. Where there was supposed to be a thick brick wall between the well-regulated, predictable world of regular banking on one side and the risky world of private credit on the other, all you have is a little piece of paper saying, come on now. And I'm not the only one worried. The Fed and the Senate Banking Committee have raised the alarm, and the IMF is saying it keeps them up at night. Hello, how are they supposed to destabilize the global south without a full night's rest? Bottom line, now we have to wonder if this is going to be the next 2008. And truth is, we don't know. Yet. Private credit is a black box. The nature of shadow banking is that it isn't being done in the light of day where regulations can get a good look at what's going on. The amount of money that's tied up in this scheme isn't exactly clear. The value of these assets isn't known because they're purposefully kept illiquid. The web of connections between banks, non-banks, and companies isn't always clearly documented, and the private credit industry has only ever existed at this scale in a world where it was never stress tested by a long recession.
Now it's official, we are in a recession.
What happens now that liquidity is drying up is dragging us deep into
We're not in a recession. We just keep laying people off.
Isn't that private credit's gonna blow everything up all at once. $3 trillion isn't the most money anyone's ever seen as far as banks go, and it's spread out across a bunch of different firms. But financial crises don't happen when someone detonates a nuclear bomb. It only takes a stick of dynamite to crack the foundation.
There she goes.
As an example, Lehman Brothers wasn't a very big bank, and it took nearly everybody else down with it.
Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. sparking chaos in the financial markets and nearly bringing down the global economy.
What happens if the defaults start making their way back up the credit chain to a bank like Wells Fargo, currently the most exposed to private credit and the US's fourth biggest bank? The stress of the war, trade disruptions, and now private credit have already sent billionaires like Buffett into holding cash. After all, who wants to be making loans at a time like this, with no guarantees that they'll ever be paid back? But someone has to bear the cost of all this. And as with the last crash, it'll be us.
Yep.
The mantra of capitalist profit is and always has been privatize the gains and socialize the losses. When the going gets tough, homeowners aren't the ones getting bailed out.
These businesses are too big to
Asset-holding
fail.
classes.
We have to bail
Wall
them
Street
out.
bonuses aren't going anywhere. But pension funds are going to sweat. Companies are going to go under. Jobs are going to evaporate. And the day after the crash is announced, the market's still going to open. Because why would we ever let a little chaos get in the way of business? There will be another crash. We'll only know then if we worried in time.
Not bad. Not bad. Where do I want to go after that? Hold on. I had... let's stay on the business side.
Wall Street. The Wolf of Wall Street.
Hold on. I gotta reload this one. All right. Last video. It's kind of long. Hello. There we go.
Wall Street. The Wolf of Wall Street. Billions. Industry. This is a list of names I'm considering for my firstborn son. But they're also the names of famous films and television programs who depict the high-flying world of finance as one filled with coke-snuffing sleazebags who absolutely love they drugs. But is the culture of Wall Street really this awesome and nose-forward? Let's find out.
Do people in finance actually do drugs?
To begin my investigation, I got word that for the right price, you can purchase the private journals of the very people working on Wall Street.
Ooh.
And while I was surprised how easy it was to gain access to such a trove of information, I was at a loss for where to start. But sometimes the best path forward is the one right in front of you. Now I had a name with plenty of vowels. All I had to do was butter him up with charm.
I'm Alex Saidi. I'm a reporter with the Wall Street Journal, and I cover finance, banking, and Wall Street.
Those are my three favorite words.
They're three pretty sexy topics, I would say.
The man was clearly comfortable enough with me to proposition sex this early in the conversation.
They're three pretty sexy topics, I would say.
I have that effect on people. But we couldn't move on to something so unprofessional so soon. We need to talk about drugs. Let's talk about drugs.
Let's talk about drugs.
Do people in finance actually do drugs anymore?
Absolutely. They're just maybe not the drugs you think they might be doing.
You think I'm wrong?
I think you could be wrong.
If I watch an old finance movie,
right? Yep.
I'm seeing a guy in a pinstripe suit doing blow off of a stripper.
Right.
Is that what's happening nowadays?
No, not these days. You know, there's definitely been a cultural shift in the types of drugs used at the office. I think outside of work, people are still partying just like they are in any industry, and I think Wall Street in particular does attract risk takers and also clout chasers. And I think cocaine lends itself well to both of those types of people. But in terms of performance enhancing drugs used to help people do their jobs better, Adderall, Zyn, caffeine at high concentrations, those are the drugs you see being abused a lot more. And particularly with Adderall, you know, Adderall is amphetamine. It's a very serious drug that people get super addicted to. The trading floors of the 80s was a really social business. You know, you were on the phone all the time. Trading floors were like raucous playgrounds, essentially. Now trading floors are really quiet. It's mostly guys like typing on their like laptops and like major monitor setups.
Admittedly, the picture Alex painted was a bleak one. If you saw that painting in a museum, you'd say, that painting sucks. But I did have my concerns about Alex.
Hey,
after all, he's merely reporting on Wall Street. I could only trust him as far as I'd pay him to throw me. So I got in touch with a few fine folks who work in finance today, and I asked them to confirm whether Alex's bleak picture of the industry's current drug culture was correct. To protect the longevity of their careers in this episode about doing drugs at work, I conducted the interviews whilst I was inside the Good Work Anonymous reporting portal.
Nah, everyone's locked in, dude. We're all robots. Legit. We're all fucking robots. We're already the AI agents, my dude. Like, legit. I think more people lean towards doing, say, Adderall than cocaine in this day and age. And, like, you can get that prescribed through Tier 1 health insurance that you're afford your firm quite easily. I'm sure any tech or finance pro
I mean, what else is
how
insurance
easy it
for?
is to get an Adderall prescription through their health insurance. Do you find that working in finance necessitates some type of stimulant?
Well, the thing is, Dan, that it's like running shoes. You know, you don't need shoes to run, but they certainly do help a lot.
The new finance drug of choice, it would be like extreme Zins. Like I'm talking about like 9s, maybe like some European 10s. I mean, people were popping that like it was chewing gum.
Now, quick point of clarification here for anybody feeling lost. In this context, European 10s refers to high-dose variations of Zyn nicotine packets. In basically any other context, European 10s refers to hot-ass people from Europe. And by that, I mean the following. I'm talking about 7-foot Dutch elvish baddies, weathered day laborers from Minsk, all of Dua Lipa's Albanian cousins, my Airbnb host Milo from Brussels, who I am still very much in love with, stray Ganona, genderless, heavily pierced East Berliners, the coastal French, the urban French, the rural French, Copenhagen baristas, Ronaldo, jaded Norwegian professors, and when the light is right and I've had a few stiff drinks, the toads they got croaking over in Cardiff, Wales. And also my Portuguese au pair from when I was little growing up. Guys, this will be on the test, okay? Okay, great. Folks, you've been putting it off for too long. Don't act cute with me. You know what I'm talking about. Your doctor's appointments. You don't want to deal with the logistics, you just don't feel like it, or you're like me and you're absolutely terrified of calling another adult on the telephone, especially if they're a doctor. Do you think I want to know what that glowing orb I have growing out of my tailbone is? Yes. But do I want to get on the telephone about it? No. Look, it's scary out there, but your body is a temple. I mean, just look at you. Which is why it should get the care it deserves when it deserves it. Which is why we have ZocDoc, today's video sponsor. ZocDoc lets you search and compare local in-network of our health. Clink. Now, where were we?
The perception is definitely not the reality. It's way more depressing. I mean, you're still working the same long hours that you see in the movies, but it's mostly off of like energy drinks and nicotine. The amount of people I saw and interacted with that were hopped up on some kind of stimulant was a lot. Not so much with more the harder substances at work, but outside of it, that's a different story.
And most of the preconceived ideas that we get from work in finance come from media. Like, you know, if you look at the movie like Wall Street, you know, with Gordon Gekko or American Psycho, or even The Wolf of Wall Street, they all come from the pre-2008 time. And even when you work in finance and, you know, these days, you will hear about people that used to work there before then, right? Like, you will hear all of these crazy stories.
Through all my conversations with the folks in and around the world of finance, people were constantly referencing these stories of the glory days of previous generations. But it was clear that in order to get an accurate depiction of the relationship between drugs and finance back in the day, I needed to speak to an old-timer in the heart and flesh. Someone who partied hardy and lived to tell the tale. Someone who, I don't know.
I got flown down in a helicopter to Atlantic City. I got my key to my suite, and so I like check in and I go into my room, and on the coffee table is my name in cursive written with cocaine. So Turney Duff is written, and I'm just like, God damn it, why did my parents name me Alexander Hamilton?
Turney Duff was a hedge fund trader in the 90s and 2000s. In 2013, he wrote a spectacular memoir of his time in finance called The Buy Side, after which he served as a consultant on billions.
We used to call it playing through. So like, you basically don't go home or you just change your suit and you never go to bed. My longest streak was 3 days, which like...
Three days no sleep.
Yeah. I woke up Wednesday morning and didn't go to bed until Saturday.
Turney told me that his partying on Wall Street began because his hedge fund job on the buy side lent itself to having a lot of brokers looking to entertain him hoping to entice him to invest through their desk. And entertaining turned out to be something that Turney was totally baller at.
During the day, sitting next to a guy from Harvard, a woman from Duke, and I had no shot. And what I figured out was at happy hour, I could crush the guy from Harvard. I could crush the woman from Duke. And so when the office lights went out and the city lights came on, that was my time to shine.
I'm thinking of the people that you worked with that were the Harvards and Dukes, but they didn't socialize. Was them not doing drugs almost an impediment on their career at all? Or
partly, yeah. I would be on a private jet with 15 to 20 people doing lines and partying our asses off. And when I got back that weekend, any trades that I had were given to the people who were on that plane. You develop these sort of drug-fueled relationships that grow together. So in that sense, it helped my career, but it didn't make me a better trader or more focused or anything like that. Think about it like this. So I'm 32 years old, founded a hedge fund called Argus Partners. We get it up to about $1.4 billion. I'm trading about $50 million a year in commissions, okay? So there's 15, 20, 30 brokers on Wall Street who all want a piece of that $50 million. Let's say you're covering me, right? What are you gonna do to get $2 or $3 million in my business? Pretty much anything I want. At the time, I was 31, 32 years old, but I would get paired up with single guys who knew how to party between 25 and 30 years old and who would get after it. So they knew exactly who to cover my account because they knew who I was, right?
Did you find that the socializing element of Wall Street was starting to go down by the time that you left it? Or is it still just as much of a part of the job?
Going into the financial collapse, it definitely felt like it was going in the wrong direction.
And look, people have been doing drugs with each other to facilitate business deals since the dawn of man. How else do you explain this cave painting of clients rolling face at an Usher concert? But unfortunately, a few spoil sports in 2008 came around and ruined that for everyone. After the global financial crisis, financiers faced a lot more scrutiny over how they were handling their business.
Now you have an industry where risk-taking has been pushed a little bit to the margins. And then in the center, the banks, these are highly regulated institutions. Compliance and risk are up everyone's asses all the time.
Pre-financial collapse, compliance would come out to the trading desk and they'd be like, Turney, excuse me, I'd be like, beat it! I'm making money, get out of here, right?
Right.
After the financial collapse, complete shift. Compliance now has more power than anyone else. And I remember I was out in the Hamptons, this is after I left the business, and I was talking to a guy, he was at a huge asset manager, I don't want to name the name, but I was talking to him, he's the head of the desk, and we were talking kind of entertainment and whatnot, and he was like, oh, well, I have to pay my own way if I go to dinner with a broker. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, really? And he was like, yes. He's like, it's not worth it. There are a lot of brokers now who just put an end to the whole entertainment business.
If you read stories of traders in the 80s, most of these guys didn't go to college. They were just really social animals that knew how to buy and sell and capture a spread in between. Today, that's unthinkable. The computers are almost doing half of the analysis that goes into a big trading operation these days. And I think what you see as a consequence of that is much more nerdy, introverted people are attracted to the industry now.
Granted, as a financial journalist, I'll admit that hearing about the greater scrutiny being placed on large investment institutions simply warms the cockles of my heart. And the heartles of my cock. However, as a guy who also loves him some hot drama, I gotta admit that this new era of Wall Street sounds a lot less sexy and maybe even more intense with this new era of drugs. A generation that's traded snorting coke while listening to Whitesnake for taking Adderall while listening to a 2-hour productivity playlist.
I think for a lot of people, it's just a way to keep going. Finance has a lot of long hours, whether you're working on the retail or more institutional side. You're gonna be put through the ringer, and it's just a cheap, easy way to keep going.
Any 100-hour work week type schedule that requires you to lock in, especially on a computer screen, you're probably going to be using some type of stimulant.
It's so obvious that there has become a culture of you can just go to a doctor who will write you a script. He doesn't take insurance, so it's kind of like a cottage industry where you just get a script for a check. Individual bosses will know when there are problems on their teams. I've spoken to some of them, and they will tell their employees, like, you don't need to take drugs to do this job. If you feel like you have to, come and talk to me. I don't think at an institutional level, though, the banks in particular have done anything coordinated to stop it. They know it's happening. What they've tried to do is really like make the work situation better, cap the hours that they work at 80 a week with exceptions, which are often employed.
Well, I was going to say, do people end up following those?
No.
Because it's
they
I'm sure
don't.
it's a good PR move to say, hey, we're capping work at 80 hours a week.
But with a huge asterisk being like, except when there's like live deals or things that we deem to be critical to the business, which is everything at all times. But I'm happy to use this show as a way to tell the world that these caps that the banks have announced in our pages aren't enforced and aren't taken seriously by the people who actually run the banks. It's been over 2 years now since some of these new caps were announced in the wake of an actual tragedy at Bank of America.
The tragedy that Alex refers to is that of Leo Lucanis, an Army veteran and former investment banker at Bank of America who clocked in multiple 100-hour work weeks finalizing an acquisition before dying of a blood clot that formed in his coronary artery, spurring a call out for the largest investment banks to reevaluate the schedules of their most tasked employees.
In the wake of that, many banks came forward and were like, we're gonna focus on work-life balance and restructure things and not have people work so much. But you talk to people on the ground and they're like, yeah, nobody takes it seriously. Because that's what human resources is saying. But human resources is not the one assigning me work. And people who are at the top now of the pyramid in the banks came up in a culture where you were just worked hard and there were no questions asked. And it's arguably even worse now because working from home is possible. So at least in the past, okay, I'm at the office till 1 or 2. I go home and I don't start till I go back. Now you can go home at 8 or 9, but be working till 5. And again, these are the environments where Adderall abuse, heavy Zyn usage, energy drink consumption, it can, just cause that to really fester in a bad way.
Couldn't agree more, Alex. And might I add that I've never seen anything fester in a good way either. Indeed, we live in an age where the reality of finance is, in some ways, much more mature than the image we get from those movies where you see a guy destroy a mountain of POW while spitting on a stripper he paid to mud wrestle a pygmy rhino. Yet some constants remain. While the stimulants have certainly changed, the degree of necessity for them hasn't. Brought about by a new era of strict, analytical, performance-driven work culture that doesn't appear to be going anywhere anytime soon, despite what the companies themselves may say. Because the most prevalent addiction in finance might not be any drug at all. It might be the work itself. Or the money. Probably the money. And for good work, I'm Dan Toomey.
Is there anything we haven't, guys? Anything else?
Well, I think we should at least mention, I went to rehab twice and I'm now 16 and a half years sober, right? There was a huge price that I paid for my behavior and it's a slippery slope. But through 12-step programs, therapy, a strong network, and just doing the work, I was able to kind of string some time together.
Again, just to reiterate the point, when you take Adderall and you don't have ADHD, you're just doing it to have more energy, work a little bit harder. Those types of people will wind up with worse impacts on their psychology because you're taking a heavy upper when your brain doesn't actually need to go up that much. For people who are thinking about, should I maybe just get an Adderall prescription so I can do a little bit better at work? There are real serious impacts to it. You should consult with a legitimate doctor.
And if you need a doctor's number, I know a great one who will give you anything on the Upper West Side.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough for me. I'm kind of tired, man. All right. I'll possibly more likely see you guys tomorrow night. Everybody can enjoy themselves and go to bed fairly early. Hold on.
Alright, CIA mode deactivated. It's time to go though. Good night, chat. Everybody, go to sleep or do whatever it is you can do without me.
Johnny's in America. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. Johnny wants to brain, Johnny wants to suck on a coke. Johnny wants a woman, Johnny wants to think of a joke. Johnny's in America, Johnny looks up at the stars. Johnny combs his hair and Johnny wants pussy and cars. Johnny's in America. Johnny's in America.